Jack Smith's Deposition, Part 14, Without Fear or Favor. Welcome to Law and Society. The reason why I'm doing what I'm doing is because it is important for everybody to remember what Donald Trump did on January 6, 2021. That he conspired to defraud the United States, conspired to take away our right to vote, and he incited an insurrection in order to aid him in that goal. No matter what Donald Trump and his loyalists say, it is important for every American to remember what happened that day. And that's why I'm reading these in sizable chunks so people can remember and are reminded, and people can spread the word about the truth about January 6th and what happened to our country. So I will read the questions first and then the answers. First question. I know the Justice Department officials often like to say that, hey, everyone in the Justice Department is nonpartisan, apolitical. They check their politics at the door. And you think that you would have said that in this case with everyone on your team, correct? Smith, I would say that that is my experience in the Justice Department through both Democratic and Republican administrations. I've worked in the department through both, and that has been my experience. So I made it clear from the day that I began as special counsel that this was going to be a nonpartisan investigation, that politics would play no role in it. I think everybody in my office agreed to that. I can tell you one incident where we were reviewing email chains of agents who might be witnesses in the case, and we needed them to give us all their emails. An FBI agent who was working on the case took that direction and actually provided us with his private emails with his family. We didn't ask for that, but he gave us his private emails. In one of those emails, he was having a dispute with family members where it was about January 6th. Once I saw that or heard that, I decided he could no longer work on this investigation. And I think that was consistent with how I ran the office. I never saw the agent do anything that I considered partisan. But just to make 100% clear to my staff, this is an agent who volunteered this beyond what was required. I wanted to make clear that anything like that was not going to be part of our investigation. Question from Jim Jordan. First of all, you chose to do it. 165 pages. And I think that's 4 times the size of normal briefs that are supposed to happen in these types of motions. And I believe the judge said it was not typical. Is that right? So here Jim Jordan is asking him about the brief that Jack Smith filed that was a superseding indictment after the Supreme Court came out with their immunity decision. Smith says yes. Question, Judge Chutkan said it was not typical? Smith, she used a word like that. But I would just say when you say these motions, I think filing a brief after an immunity decision is not a common issue, and having to have a new evidentiary issue in addition to an immunity issue. Question, is there any new evidence in the 165-page brief? Smith, I'm sure there is, but as I said, my recollection is the majority of the evidence was already public. The brief emphasized how we could prove our case using evidence of as candidate as opposed to evidence that might otherwise be precluded by official acts. That was the ruling of the Supreme Court. So, for example, a thing in the brief would be that at least 2 of the House staff members who would have been witnesses, that they were also working on the campaign. And so not a particularly important fact in the world, but important in our particular brief. So there were facts like that and other that were new, that were in the brief. Question, were you, during the pendency of the investigation, aware of the Capitol January 6th FBI had confidential human sources who had, Smith answers, I'm sure I probably was. I think that was public reporting on that. I know there was an Office of Inspector General report about this, and there was no undercover officers that had been reported, but there were informants there, some of who had gone there on their own. Question: what would the sentence have been for the charges that you indicted for? Smith: I'm not going to speculate. I mean, we sat down and went over the sentencing guidelines. We could talk about what that would be, but I had not done that analysis, and I haven't thought or looked at or thought about that issue. You only get to that if you try your case and you prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. We did not do that in this case. There was no trial, and we didn't do that. So with that, I conclude the 14th section of reading of Jack Smith's deposition. You see here how Jack Smith testified under oath, under penalty of perjury, that he followed department protocol and he did not do anything that was out of bounds for the special counsel to do. With that said, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll come back soon to talk to you about more of the deposition. Take care, everybody.